Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to English 1150 and the beginning of Unit 7, where we're actually going to be doing story and sketch this week. We're going to be continuing the kind of work that we did with Unit 6, where I asked you to think about the connections between the sort of archival material and drawings by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and then sort of your own interpretations and experiences of the yellow wallpaper and how you kind of turn those into sort of this fabulous, what I've seen so far, some really great sketches, drawings, watercolors. It's been really great to kind of see you using what's called ekphrasis, which is the Greek term for using one piece of artwork to describe another. So, for example, using a painting to describe a poem, or in your case, a short story to craft a painting or a sketch. And so I hope that you've had fun with this activity. Actually, what you're looking at right now is the collection of artifacts that you aggregated as a result of the Charlotte Perkins Gilman archive, the digitized archive, and you found some really great items here. And I was so excited to see sort of the range of perspective. We were thinking in particular about point of view. So please look in a couple days for my comments on your collaborative reading from last week. And I want us to continue. I know that each of these units feel like they're kind of existing in isolation, to continue to make connections between texts. So for example, what's the relationship between the yellow wallpaper and this week we're going to be looking at James Thurber's The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, which is a vastly kind of different short story. And we're doing this week because, again, I'm still waiting to get my short story edition of Recitative by Toni Morrison from the library. So please look forward to that next week. Hopefully I will have it by then. So thank you again for listening and for your attention, and you're doing such a great job keeping up with the 3 projects each week, which are the discussion board posts, of course the collaborative reading, the centerpiece of our class, and then the Google slide deck. A few things I want you to keep in mind this week as we continue with James Thurber. This again is from James Thurber. It's called the James Thurber thurberhouse.org, and they put together some information about this writer. And so just briefly, it says he was a humorist, a cartoonist, an author, a playwright, and journalist known for his quirky, whimsical, and relatable characters and themes. One of the foremost American humorists. So I want you to think about humor in this particular short story. What about this short story makes it humorous? What about it sort of lends itself to quick transitions and sketches? His inimitable wit and pithy prose spanned a breadth of mediums and genres, including short stories, illustrations, modern commentary, fables, children's fantasy, and letters. So again, how can this sort of fluency with different genres impact the characterization, the point of view, the theme, the sort of structure of the short story that we're reading? Can we see these other things working behind the fabric of our short story? Many of Thurber's drawings and stories first appeared in the New Yorker. This week it's going to be really exciting because you're going to actually, under Unit 7, get to do a little more story and sketch. This week, I'd like you to think specifically about James Thurber in terms of how the visual impacts the written. Thurber writes, "Some people thought my drawings were done underwater. Others thought that they were done by moonlight. But mothers thought that I was a little child or that my drawings were done by my granddaughter. So they sent in their own children's drawings to the New Yorker, and I was told to write these ladies, and I would write them all the same letter. Your son can certainly draw as well as I can. The only trouble is he hasn't been through as much." And so James Thurber has got this sort of sense of irony, a little bit of sarcasm, and he is interesting because in his short stories, as you'll see, this sketch quality is transposed. This week, you're going to actually be learning a little bit more about James Thurber through a short documentary I'd like you to watch. It's about 58, 59 minutes, almost an hour, but not quite. And it talks a little bit about why he's sort of wearing what he's wearing. He has some trouble with his vision, right? So he's actually not able to see so clearly, which is why his drawings, I think, are so sort of chiaroscuro, the black and white, that sort of complex is very stark. And so what you'll see here, I'd like you to work on this week are beginning by looking at this documentary. This film below you can access by first, if you need to, creating a COD library account, but then you can simply just click here on the embedded link and it should take you right to your film. So after you read through that, after you view this film, what I'd like you to do is to create your own sketch, Thurber-like cartoon that draws from the short story. So if you go down, you'll find that the short story, which makes all of what maybe a page and a half, it's a very short story, will draw from that particular document. So after reading the short story, and again, I forgot to mention that there's actually a film with Ben Stiller by the same title that has sort of elaborated and exaggerated and developed this particular short story into a full-length feature film, about 2 hours. So if anyone's interested or has seen it, you'll know that this short story originated here from the short story from 1939. So after viewing this film and reading the short story below, make sure, I'd like you to try again to sketch a Thurber-like cartoon this week. So not Charlotte Perkins Gilman-esque, but actually Thurber-esque. You may decide to make this sketch with a pen and paper, or again, you can use your computer. So the same things as last week. Please make sure to build out another page on your Google site titled Unit 7 Story and Sketch. Include a copy of your sketch, complete with a title or phrase beneath the image. So you'll get kind of a sense of what those titles and images should reflect. So you're trying to kind of capture the same sense here as James Thurber is imitating and intimating in his short story. And in addition to the sketch and the phrase, I'd like you to include either a written or a spoken via vocal recording explanation of why you made the artistic choices you have. Make sure to quote from the short story to support your response. Just a little bit about James Thurber's sketches. So where do they appear and why are they so interesting? Here's a great book that I actually haven't been able to check out, but it's called 1.5 miles of Lines, The Art of James Thurber. It's a recent publication that actually, September 2019, that talks a little bit about his work, his drawings. Included in this text are some 260 drawings. It says it's the first comprehensive focus on his work as an artist, a cartoonist, and as an illustrator. And it celebrates the fact that all of these drawings combined can make up 1.5 miles of drawings. So he was so prolific that, it's just really interesting to see in what ways does that sort of development of art sort of inspire or inform the art of writing the written language that we're reading for this week. It says 1.5 miles line showcases both classic Thurber as well as a visual material never seen in print. So well worth looking into. I haven't been able to get this book yet either. So some exciting things happening with our writers / the artists that are sort of transgressing genres importantly in their hobbies, everyday life kind of routine. So here you'll see our short story. This week I'd like you to, after viewing the film, please read through this short story and focus your comments on its humorous or sketch-like qualities. Again, coming back to this idea of in what ways does the writing reflect the kinds of image or drawing that he experiences and wants to share, and in what ways do the drawings inform how this sort of sentence structure, the length, the narration, the pacing itself as a kind of sketch. And to include 2 comments to this effect and 2 responses to peer comments by Friday. Again, defining unfamiliar terms is always welcome practice, especially some of these references. And I'm going to include here a secondary source that tries to put in context some of these reference points that Thurber mentions. What was happening in the news at the time? Where might he be drawing some of these ideas and names from, if anyone's interested in looking at those. And the last thing I'd like you to do, again, this is very linked this week with this video, but I'd like you to go to our slide deck and I'd like you to include one quotation from the movie that draws a connection between Thurber's writing and sketching or cartooning life. And alongside that quotation, just simply copy and paste an accompanying cartoon from Thurber himself that illustrates this point. You may have to do some online searches and or use the snipping tool while you're watching the video. You can just pause the video and use your snipping tool on your computer if you're working from a computer to simply copy and paste it into our Google Doc. Also, a quick note, please read through previous slides. So duplicated material will not receive credit, and that's only happened a couple times, but just make sure that you see what students have put before you so that you're not actually just duplicating something that we've already read. So I will share with you my contribution for this week. It's the quotation from the film was, "By having lost an eye, young Thurber became an outsider and an observer, and through his writing he learned to transpose misery into comedy." I hope you have a really great week, and please check back frequently because I will be sending you feedback shortly on those Google Site posts from last week for Unit 6 at Charlotte Perkins Gilman. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to Unit 7 and to sort of excite you about the possibilities of James Thurber's sketch-like short story writing, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Thanks for listening.